time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day to join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Monday night from downtown Columbia, a wet downtown Columbia. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans in our audience and across the state. We thank you for everything that you are doing and everything that you have done. Think of you on this day and appreciate you very much. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, and Brian Leonard together here on this Monday. Phone number 800-956-7266, 800-956-7266. We'll open it up early to get in as many calls as we can. I got to believe a lot of Gamecock fans have a lot of things to talk about tonight coming off their weekend. Clemson taking care of its business up at Boston College. What a defensive performance by the Tigers. Didn't need a great offensive performance, but they got a pretty good one. So they win the division again. They'll be in the ACC championship game again. A chance to make another run at a national championship. Meantime, you know, I've looked at this thing several times and thought about it, and I've got to put the blame squarely on the defense with the Gamecocks. I'm sorry. I feel like if your offense gets you 31 points with 20 minutes to play and turns it over to you with a 17-point lead, you've got to find a way as a defense to protect. And they did not. They let Florida just dominate them to the tune of 230 yards on their last three possessions. They let them convert third downs. And here's the thing, guys. You knew that Florida couldn't beat you with the pass. Look at their downfield passing in that game. It was non-existent. Now, Tony was a guy that if he got the ball in space, he was extremely dangerous. Mm-hmm. But you knew that if you could make Florida into a passing team, if you could make Franks a passer, in other words, slow down the running game, you would win that game. And they could not do that even in the last 20 minutes when they had the big cushion in terms of the point spread, and they let Florida just run the ball. They didn't beat them with the pass. Florida did not panic. They did not go away from what is their strength, which is the running game, and just try and throw the ball all over the park to come back. They ran it. Why didn't South Carolina put more men in the box and do what it takes to stop even a good running game like Florida's?
Listen, I know that you want to pin it on the defense, and I know that the defense really can take much of the blame. I do think, though, that there are parts of that offense that just weren't working on all cylinders. I mean, you did not know how to salt this game away. It was an odd situation for South Carolina. This team has been so used to coming from behind and needing to play its best in the fourth quarter to come from behind, and they just did not know how to salt away this game. I mean, they only had 23 total yards in the fourth quarter. They rushed it 7 times for 3.3 yards per carry. They didn't have any passing yards, and they did have some attempts. I mean, they were 0 of 3, and they, of course, had the interception by Bentley. But I just think they didn't run their offense, number one, as efficiently as they did before, but they also kind of became predictable. They lapsed into some of the same bad habits that had riddled them over the course of the first half of the season. And they turned, at least in 1 quarter and a half, into the team that we unfortunately had come to see over the course of that first part of the season when they were losing to teams that were quality teams, but still they weren't playing well enough to even be on the same field as teams like Georgia and Kentucky.
Well, you know, I'm going to take a look at it from a different standpoint, because you know how I am about the mental portion of a game. South Carolina, at least defensively in my mind, and maybe the coaching staff as well, maybe they didn't take into account, which I thought of right when the game started, is that Florida is a wounded animal. They are desperate. Mm-hmm. They're not going to lose 3 games in a row. Heaven help them. I think if Muschamp would tell you seriously, hindsight is 20/20. He may have seen in the second drive, my defense doesn't have it, and let's turn the screws up again. If we have to throw it all over the lot, we need to pad this lead, which he didn't do. Now I'm going to go back to some of our more older people and tell you what that game reminded me of. I remember when Joe Morrison took a South Carolina team into Nebraska, and Nebraska tried to throw the ball with Turner Gill. Then when Turner Gill got injured, I said, uh-oh, now South Carolina's in trouble because Nebraska's going to turn on that red thrashing machine and start running over them, and they're not going to be able to stop them. And they didn't stop them. And in the fourth quarter reminded me of the same thing.
We saw something similar earlier this year with Clemson and Syracuse when they had their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, get injured, and they had to go to Chase Bryce and kind of go to a makeshift game plan. They just ran the football. Yeah. Syracuse knew they were running the football, and guess what? They out-executed them. So from the standpoint of where South Carolina sits, this is a total team failure. I know that they want to blame it on the defense. The defense certainly is to blame, but I think also
they don't want to. They don't want to blame it on defense. I'm blaming it on the defense. Wow. I'm saying,
well, Muschamp did the same thing too.
Our poll question is, who do you blame? Do you blame the play calling? Do you blame the poor tackling? Do you blame it on the Spurrier jinx? Those are the three answers to our poll question. We'll give you the results in a moment. But, after looking at it, I'm thinking, you're up 31-17.
Should win that game.
And the other team has the ball now, all right? You didn't have the ball in the big lead, but you had 17-point advantage. Now, we'll blame the offense on this. They had a short field after recovering a fumble at the Florida 31 and could manage only a field goal.
The muff punt, yeah.
Knocked that in for a touchdown. And, you got an even – and then they went down and scored. They field goaled. Then Florida had the punt. The Gamecocks took it down and scored again with the 89-yard pass to Deebo Samuel. They were up 17. Could have been up even more. This point being, 20 minutes to go, you're up 17 points. Yes, there's some things you could do to massage the clock. For example, this is a small thing, but the Gamecocks had the ball at the end of the third quarter, and they ran a play and got back up to the line of scrimmage with 14 seconds to go in the quarter.
And snapped it. Yeah.
And snapped it.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a 17-point lead. Just let the clock run out. That's bad coaching. That's bad execution. There's no other way to put it. That's just bad. Even, football
novices,
idiots like me know that. There's a time to go fast and there's a time to go smart. And so that's just a small thing. Even though they didn't move the ball at all in the fourth quarter, the defense didn't do anything to stop Florida, and Florida did very little fancy. Their longest pass completion was 19 yards for the entire game. It's not like they were throwing the ball deep. This guy, Franks, if he had time to throw the medium out pattern, he could throw a BB. But where he hurt you was
dink and dunk.
Well, but primarily on the ground. The quarterback keeper, the power with the quarterback was very good for them, kind of like they did with Tebow.
Right.
He was similar to Tebow because Tebow wasn't a great passer, but he could run the power, and they could run the running game with him. That failure to come up with a way on defense to adjust in the fourth quarter to force them to go to the air, that's on Travaris Robinson and Will Muschamp for not coming up with a way. I know the offense and the play calling was questioned, and Muschamp said on his conference call last night, well, they didn't change anything in the play calling. It was RPOs. It was all on the quarterback making that decision. Which, okay, that's fine. But then he made some poor decisions. Yeah. Which tells me cut out the RPOs and send in plays from above and say, run this play because, this is what we want to see happen here. But I still, in my thinking, it is on the defense. They bear the bulk of the responsibility for a loss. It should have been a win. And that was such a costly loss because you would have had 6 wins, probably from what we were hearing, would have put him in great position for the Gator Bowl, which would have been a wonderful gift for this team this year. Now you got to beat Chattanooga or Akron because, look, you're going to get beat by Clemson by 30. It'll be as bad as Clemson wants it to be. I know you don't want to hear that, Gamecock fans. That's the world you live in right now.
Well, they're the better team.
They're not only the better team, they're the better team by far.
The missing of they're not making more out of that fumble was, I think, the turning point, which gave Florida hope. You could have totally killed the will and killed the spirit there. The other part of this, too, and to use a basketball analogy, you knew Florida was going to make a run at some point, and how you withstood and was able to stand up to that run would have told the story on how you were able to play that game, and they didn't do it. And that's the reason that they lost the game.
All right, 800-956-7266. We'll hear what you have to say after the break.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back at Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. All right, your first chance to weigh in on the weekend that is when it comes to South Carolina and Clemson. Give us a call, 800-956-7266. Also, be looking out. Coming up in our next segment, we will be once again giving away tickets to the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources Sportsman Classic, which is coming up in March, by asking you the 3 questions in our Terminix Best or Fest Fan of the Week contest. That comes your way in our next segment here on Sports Talk. Some notes across the state to get to, and also weekend basketball. Clemson a 2-0 first weekend, and South Carolina, let's just say, lesser than expected. Man, that was some of the worst basketball I'd seen in a long time.
Yeah, we'll get to your calls here in just a moment. Yeah, the basketball. Think about this. The Gamecocks have played 3 public games, or exhibition, and 2 regular season games, and they have stunk in all 3. Now, is this an indication of how they're going to be all season long, or will they get better? I mean, I'm willing to be patient and see how they come along. They've got some good young talent, but my goodness, have they looked awful out of the gate.
It's really a failure of a lot of things, but the real, I think, disappointing part of it, and Frank Martin spoke about this very candidly on Friday night, they're getting probably more than they expected out of their freshmen, and they're getting absolute zero out of their experienced players that they need contributions from. Guys like Hassani Gravett, guys like Mike Kotsar, who at least, according to Frank, had shown improvement over the offseason with his offensive game. And Chris Silva has been an absolute zero when it comes to just being able to stay on the floor, not playing good enough defense, and also not giving you the offensive numbers. This was the guy who was the leading scorer for the team last year. He had 7 points and 2 rebounds.
Let me make it simple for Coach Sark. Can you grab 1 rebound?
I mean,
because if you grab 1 rebound, that's more than what you grabbed in your last
game.
And
that's exactly the line that Frank said.
I'm not copying Frank there, but my goodness, how can you be that big and not grab a rebound? All right, some quick notes. The USC Clemson game will be 7 o'clock on ESPN. That was announced today, so you'll have all day to get ready for that one. ACC Players of the Week include Clemson's Trevor Lawrence as the Rookie of the Week and Christian Wilkins as the Defensive Lineman of the Week. Do you realize first time Wilkins has ever won a Player of the Week honor?
That's shocking.
In his career.
And Lawrence has got 4 Rookies of the Week. I don't know if he's a rookie anymore.
Clemson, Georgia announced the home-and-home series between the two. They'll play at Clemson September 15th of 2029. And at Sanford Stadium, August 31st of 2030. Of course, they'll play in 2024 in Atlanta. The Southern Conference Players of the Week, Brandon Rainey, the quarterback from the Citadel, who all of a sudden he has gotten red hot at that position. And also from the Citadel, the Defensive Player of the Week is Aaron Spann, defensive back for the Bulldogs, who got a big win over the weekend.
Big comeback.
Kelly Bryant, the update from Matt Connolly of the States, citing a source saying that Bryant will take an official to Mississippi State this weekend. Then he'll go to Auburn, and then he'll go to Miami, and then he'll make his decision on December the 4th. He's been to Missouri, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Auburn once before.
He's not going to Missouri. I'll tell you that right now.
The new basketball polls for this week, the Clemson men with their 2-0 start, and they have moved up. 19. The Tigers are 19. They were 22, and Duke has moved to number 1 after their impressive start.
Hard to argue with that.
The AP women's poll, the USC women, after opening up with a win yesterday, they remain at number 10. Notre Dame is 1, and Connecticut is 2. The Big South specialist of the week is Charleston Southern punter Kyle Raygard. So congratulations to him. Always like to drop those things in. And what else do I want to mention here? There was something
means you got a lot of work. That's the unfortunate part about that.
Well, South Carolina is 9th in the country in net punting.
They've gotten a lot of work.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they are towards the bottom and everything else. Clemson now leads the country in scoring defense and is 2nd in total defense.
I tell you what,
9th
man,
in offense.
You look at the way that they've played. I mean, they are hitting it from all cylinders, and you kind of have Alabama floundering a little bit, especially with the injury to Tua. This could work out in a way for Clemson where even if they don't possibly see a full Alabama team, or maybe they could see an Alabama team that's a little wounded. Maybe they don't even see Alabama. Who knows?
That's what I was telling you today. I said, look, Boston College looked dangerous in that first quarter, and then their quarterback goes down. I said, what's going to happen is Clemson is going to beat Michigan, Alabama will beat Notre Dame, and then in the game against Notre Dame late, Tua will get hurt. And so Clemson won't even have to play against Tua.
I don't think they'll play Notre. I think that Clemson will play Notre Dame just because I think the committee will continue to rank Notre Dame ahead of Michigan just because of the head-to-head victory.
FCS ranking this week, Wofford moves up 2 spots to number 13. North Dakota State is 1 and Kennesaw State is 2. This Saturday, Kennesaw State and number 6 Jacksonville State, they meet at Sunlight Stadium. First football game at the Braves Park. And
SunTrust Park.
SunTrust Park.
Yeah,
SunTrust. What did I say?
Sunlight.
I'm sorry, SunTrust Park.
You were thinking of the Miami Sun Life Stadium.
Yeah. First football game in that venue. And also wanted to mention that's okay. Oh, Southern Conference scenarios, because we could have a very interesting finish to the season. So East Tennessee State gets the automatic qualifier to the playoffs if it wins on Saturday. No questions asked. They will be 7-1. If East Tennessee State and Furman both lose, then East Tennessee and Wofford finish tied at 6-2. Wofford gets the automatic qualifier because it won head-to-head. If East Tennessee loses and Furman wins, that creates a 3-way tie at 6-2.
Don't tell me there's a coin flip involved.
No. It'll come down to points allowed within the league.
Damn.
And right now, Furman leads in that category with 16 fewer points surrendered. Wofford would be next. So they would
have the coach's arm wrestle, because I think Clay Hendricks probably would have a
possibly. So, I mean, there's a way for Wofford and Furman. I think Wofford, at the very least, if they win, they've already finished their league at 6-2. If they win Saturday, and they're playing a Presbyterian, so they should win. I think they're in regardless. Furman would have to get the automatic qualifier, I would think, and some things would have to happen to help them out. All right, let's get to the phone calls. 800-956-7266. Billy in Somerville, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
Aggravated Carolina fan. How you doing, Phil?
Good.
I got one comment, and I'll hang up and listen, so I know you're busy. But I've been a Carolina fan for over 40 years. My whole family went to Carolina, so I've seen a lot of football, and I have not time. And a lot of these people are saying you got to give as much chance with. Yeah, I understand. I get that. But this game kind of reminded me of the Texas A&M game last year. There's no excuse to blow a 17-point lead in a fourth quarter game. I don't care who you're playing. If the quarterback's making bad decisions, that falls on the head coach. If the offensive coordinator's making bad decisions, that falls on the head coach. And the head coach should make those adjustments to make sure the team doesn't lose. The poor tackling is also a coaching mistake, and if they see that defense isn't tackling, they should call a timeout and be able to adjust that. It's like I said, I don't care who you are. If you have a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter, there's no excuse for a team just to debacle like that. And I've seen it so many times over the years. It gets to a point where you kind of feel like you're in a twilight zone. You can't get mad at it anymore. It's like what Uncle said about the game of Nebraska in '87. I remember that game clearly like it was yesterday. It was the same thing. Carolina had everything going for them. They had a momentum, and it's just like they debacle and quit. And I don't know what the answer is, but you've got to blame it on the coach, and you can't blame it on the players. If Jake Bentley's making bad decisions, you call a timeout, pull him aside. You don't blame it on him after the game, and I'll hang up and listen later.
Here's the problem. You're getting nothing out of your back seven. Nothing positive, at least. You're getting nothing positive out of your back seven. You got two safeties, and you just lost another safety this week with Jalen Dickerson. You have two safeties who basically have no experience playing the position, and you have cornerbacks who are even also being told to play positions that you weren't necessarily expecting them to play, at least roles that they were expected to play earlier in this season, especially with the two freshmen. I mean, and your linebackers, there's been no greater deficiency from last year to this in any position on this football team, more deficient than the linebacker.
I don't know.
Position.
I mean, T.J. Brunson made 16 tackles.
That's not
Saturday.
A good thing. That's not a good thing. Because a lot of them are down the field.
No. You go back and watch the game.
Yeah,
he was along the line and in the backfield. And if you're facing a running team, your linebackers would damn well be making the tackles. He made 16 of them. He had a fumble recovery. He had 2 sacks. He had a hell of a game, I thought, at linebacker. We'll talk more about that. One thing Zach Willis told me, he counted 23 missed tackles by the Gamecocks.
Terminix Best or Pest contest next.
It's time for the Terminix Best Fan or Pest Fan of the Week. For over 70 years, Terminix has helped Carolina and Clemson fans protect what they love about living in the South, from football Saturdays to Sunday brunch.
Every Monday here on Sports Talk, we play the Terminix Best or Pest Fan of the Week contest. All you got to do is answer 3 questions from this past weekend's Carolina and Clemson games. If you get the questions right, we'll give you 4 tickets to the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic coming up to Columbia March 22nd through the 24th. These tickets go fast. We're pretty lucky to team up with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and Terminix to get them to you. First up, Corn, we have Seth in Swansea. He's going to play Terminix Best or Pest with us.
Seth, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Good, Phil. How are you?
Good. Thank you for calling in.
Good.
Tiger or Gamecock?
Tiger.
Tiger. We got one Clemson question and two Gamecocks. You ready?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Here we go. We'll start with the easy one for you since you're a Tiger fan. A first
All right.
in Clemson football history occurred during the Boston College game. What was it?
First, as far as, was it be a record for the team?
No, an event. An event occurred in the game. First time.
I don't even know this one.
Well, this is historical.
Would it be
I
a punt
know.
return by both teams?
Ah, there you go. Way to dig down
All right.
deep and never give up. Bingo.
Yes, sir.
Boy, if you had trouble with that, I feel for you coming up. These are Gamecock questions. Number two,
All right.
what personal milestone did Jake Bentley achieve at Florida?
Is that to do with the interception?
This
Did he
is,
become the all-time leader in touchdown passes in South Carolina?
no. Got ways to go to catch Steve Tannehill.
Okay.
Now, how do we want to do this? Do we want to just
Give him another chance because he's not a Clemson.
But do we want to take the other callers too and give them a chance?
I want to give him another shot just because he's a Clemson fan. You want to give him a hint?
No. I'll tell you what. I'm going to hold the questions. We'll take another call. But anything else you want to say about Clemson, Seth, before we go to the next caller?
Not much. Just I'm excited for the fourth straight ACC championship game and going to the Clemson game, Carolina game in a couple of weeks. So first game I got to go to this year, so I'm hoping to kind of finish off the undefeated season and go from there.
You got it, my man. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Seth.
So he got one out of the three. We didn't give him the third one. I think we should keep taking callers till we get somebody who gets them all.
All right.
And if you're paying attention, then you know the answer to the first question.
800-956-7266. 4 tickets to the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic on the line.
Russ in Charlotte. Welcome in, Russ. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Gamecock or Tiger?
Gamecock.
Okay. Well, you might have a chance here if you're paying attention. You want these tickets badly, don't you?
Well, honestly, I live in Charlotte, and I don't know that I could come, but I did want to make a comment on the response to who's responsible for the loss this weekend, if you had time for that.
Yeah, but do you want to do the questions first?
Sure.
You can give them to a friend,
I'll
or
try.
you got time. It's not till the spring, and you ought to come in. If you're an outdoorsman, man, there's nothing better than the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic. All right, here we go. First in Clemson football history occurred during the Boston College game. What was it?
Was that the punt return by both teams?
Very
Okay.
good. Very good. Paying attention. That's good. All right, now your Gamecock questions. What personal milestone did Jake Bentley achieve at Florida?
That one I did see the game, but I'm not 100% sure. Did he throw for over 400 yards?
He did not. You're kind of in the neighborhood, but that's not the correct answer. So what was your comment? We'll try another caller here in a moment.
Okay. My comment is this, and I'm a longtime Gamecock fan. My dad graduated from there in the early 60s. But, I'm going back to the Vanderbilt game where we had a several touchdown lead and came out the second half, and we had, I think it was the running back fumbled going into the end zone at the 1 yard line. And then A.J. Turner ended up fumbling on about a 20-yard run. And after that, they came out in the Kentucky game, and the first possession of the game, and what a big game that was, and came out the first possession, and they turned the ball over. And so, in my mind, of course, it's all going to fall on the coach. Wins and losses fall on the coach. But in the SEC, it's a fine line between winning and losing. And South Carolina is they're not good enough to win games turning the ball over. And, this game in the second half, they had a 17-point lead. They were running a hurry-up offense in the fourth quarter. And it's one thing to be able to run the ball in the course of the game, but when the game's on the line and the other team is putting 5, 6, 7 guys in the box to stop the run, that's the time when you're going to have to get creative and maybe run reverses or be able to throw the ball to put the game away. And I don't know that Muschamp is going to be able to do that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they did get pretty bland with their play calling because they were doing the RPOs, as Muschamp said, which means you're limited to either hand the ball off or throw a pass. Instead of, like in the first half, they ran Deebo Samuel on the jet sweep some, and they were a little more creative in their play calling in the first half. All right, thank you very much. Nice try, but you failed. Let's keep it rolling here on the contest. Trying to give away 4 tickets to the Sportsman's Classic this spring from DNR, the Terminix Best or Pest Fan of the Week. And we're headed next to
Harold in Greenville.
Harold, welcome in, my friend. How are you?
Doing fine. Listen, I'm gonna pass on this little contest. I just want to get my remarks in. Y'all pretty much covered some things, but you know something, for the last 4 or 5 years.
I tell you what, Harold, hang on. I'm sorry, sir. Hang on. We'll come back to you. We need to give these tickets away before our music runs out. How long is that music bed? About 15 minutes? We're getting short on the time. Let's try one more for the contest. Oh, where'd Harold go?
He lost
us. Call back, Harold. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be rude, but we're trying to give these tickets away.
Tom, Charleston.
Yes, sir. Yes, man. Carolina fan and a DNR. I'm a hunter and all that. So
okay. A man after our hearts. I hope you're following all the rules that Captain Downer's been talking about on the show. I hate for you to get a citation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've called in. Yeah, I've called in a couple of times.
All right. You ready, sir?
Yep. Go ahead.
All right. Please be on your A game here. A first in Clemson football history occurred during the Boston College game. What was it?
Both teams run for a punt return.
Got it.
For a touchdown. Very good. What personal milestone did Jake Bentley achieve at Florida?
Did he complete the most passes on the least amount of attempts?
No.
These questions are so hard.
They're not hard.
I don't even know
I know
answer.
they're not hard. I thought it was on
they're not hard.
milestone.
It has to do with the passing game. It has to do with the passing game.
Well,
a personal milestone.
Obviously.
Personal milestone.
All right. Well, I thought I had it. I didn't, I thought I had it. I didn't hear the third question, but I thought I had it. The only thing is Carolina needs to quit Clemsoning. That's all they need to do.
Quit. Hey, you can't say that anymore. Clemson doesn't Clemson anymore. Clemson kicks ass.
Carolina's doing it now.
That's all they
Carolina's
do.
doing it now. That's all they do.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Can't say that.
Thank you. All right, we got a break coming up, so
we got about a minute. So if
you want to squeeze one more,
try to do one more.
One more contestant, Brian.
Yeah,
real quick. Buck in Lexington. Buck, Gamecock or Tiger? Buck, Gamecock or Tiger? Oh, we lost everybody. All right, we'll hold it till the next segment. These are not hard questions, people, if you're paying attention. If you're a Gamecock
I watched
fan,
the entire game.
Well, maybe it has something to do beyond just a single game. I said milestone, a personal milestone. I'm going to give you the third question so you can think about it. What's the significance of the Bentley to Samuel 89-yard pass play at Florida? There's really 2 significant things. I'll take one of the 2. So think about that. Think about what personal milestone
I know the answer to that question.
Did Bentley achieve? We know the answer to the first one. So you just need to come up with the answer to the 2 Gamecock questions. And then we'll talk about the Gamecocks blowing a 17-point lead in 20 minutes. It's really hard to believe that they did that. I firmly put it on the defense. The last 3 drives by Florida that turned the game around. We'll talk about those when we come back and leave you scratching your head, to say the least.
3 plays is all it takes.
It's time for the Terminex Best Fan or Pest Fan of the Week. For over 70 years, Terminex has helped Carolina and Clemson fans protect what they love about living in the South, from football Saturdays to Sunday brunch.
Monday here on Sports Talk, we play the Terminex Best or Pest Fan of the Week contest. All you got to do is answer 3 questions from the past weekend's games. We might fire the question asker after this 1 week, though, because we've still yet to give away these tickets. But if you do get 3 questions right, we'll give you 4 tickets to the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic coming to Columbia March 22nd through 24th. These tickets go fast. We don't have that many of them, so we're pretty lucky to get them and give them to you from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and Terminex. If you've been listening, we've asked all 3 questions already, so you should have time to possibly think these over.
Yeah. All right, we got 4 more contestants on the line.
Wow. Click.
See if somebody's got it right. Let's go to Jeff in North Augusta.
Right now, you should have looked at the post-game notes by now to try and cheat, which we allow.
Jeff, Gamecock or Tiger?
Gamecock.
Okay.
All right, don't be so down. Only 3 more weeks to go. Are you ready, Jeff?
I'm ready.
All right.
We need a little enthusiasm.
A first in Clemson football history occurred during the Boston College game. What was that?
Both teams ran a punt back for a touchdown.
Okay, we got 1.
All right, here's the tough stuff. Apparently, these are hard questions, I'm being told. What personal milestone did Jake Bentley achieve at Florida?
You told me this during the break, and I didn't even realize it. So
He went over 6,000 career passing yards.
Hey! This dude's done his homework.
2!
He's done his homework. Number 3, what's the
like
significance of the Bentley to Samuel 89-yard pass play at Florida?
It was the longest play in Carolina history that didn't go for a touchdown.
Bingo.
Hey!
It also was the longest play of the season. I would have accepted either just to get this over.
And you accepted the third is the first time you ever seen Debo run from behind.
Yeah.
What was the name of the gentleman again? I'm sorry.
That is Jeff.
Jeff, you are the Terminex Best Fan of the Week. You've won 4 tickets to the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic, March 22nd through the 24th here in Columbia, courtesy of the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Please hold on. Do not hang up the phone, Jeff, because we need to get your information for that.
You have any other comments about the Gamecock game at Florida, Jeff?
No, I don't need to talk about that anymore.
And that is how we do the Terminex Best or Pest Fan of the Week.
For over 70 years, Terminex has helped Carolina and Clemson fans protect what they love about living in the South, from football Saturdays to Sunday brunch.
Now, that is how that segment is supposed to go. Because
It's not supposed to be easy. I'm sorry, it's not supposed to be easy. I don't give away my tickets just for the sake of giving them away. In the name of Captain Billy Downer, hunting and fishing and being a sportsman, it's not easy. Thus, getting those tickets is not easy. Should not be easy. Will never be easy.
Wow.
Not as long as I'm making the questions up.
So we're going to.
I knew the third question, and I knew the first question.
I wanted to mention the last 3 Florida possessions. 10 plays, 75 yards, 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
Yeah.
8 plays, 89 yards, 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
I mean,
touchdown.
No one's sitting here and doubting you that they
10 plays, 66 yards, 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Combined 28 plays, 230 yards, 9 minutes and 18 seconds. The point is, if you're a defense, and I know they were missing some safeties, okay? Everybody has injuries. You recruited these guys. It's late in the season. You know, they should be coached up and old enough now to be able to play. And the defense was non-existent for whatever reason. I think they were – I don't know what the strategy was. You know, I would have put 7, 8 in the box. I would have manned up on the outside and said, okay, Felipe Franks.
Guys.
Oh, sure they do. That's how they beat Ole Miss. They played man and helped them come back in that game. I just would not have let Florida just run the ball down my throat. Now, I know some of those runs were great individual efforts as the guys, you know, had cutbacks and they're just, you know, P. Ryan's an excellent running back. Scarlett's an excellent running back. I remember him from recruiting days. And I'm telling you what, that Tony kid, that guy's got a chance to be All-American written over him if they give him the ball enough.
This is just personally what I have done. I find out that sometimes you need a cup of black coffee. You need a wake-up call. I would have called a run blitz on every play. maybe that wakes you up because a lot of players don't stand and catch. I saw a lot of standing and catching.
Well, here's the other problem again.
Yes, sir.
They held the ball for 10 minutes, or almost 11 of the entire fourth quarter. That defense was on the field a long time. And I know you don't want to sit here and say that they're not conditioned for it. But, again, I go back to the fact that the offense did not know how to salt away the game. It's just you have to figure out how to win. They don't know how to win.
Yeah.
Clemson knows how to win. Clemson knows how to salt away a game.
Clemson is not in this conversation.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying.
This is why it's dangerous. That's why Gus Malzahn is always on the hot seat. Because what? Because they ain't Alabama. We're talking about South Carolina here, not Clemson.
Well, I think we spent a lot of time and beating the fact that South Carolina doesn't know how to salt away a game.
No, but let me give Florida credit. If I'm Florida's coach, look, I know South Carolina's defense looks like a mash unit. When we get to the fourth quarter, it's a heavyweight fight. We're going to throw a lot of haymakers, and we're going to connect, and we're going to run them ragged, get them tired, and that's exactly what they did.
All I'm saying is we've tried to give the opponents for Clemson, or at least the national media has tried to give the opponents for Clemson all the juice in the world coming into every week, whether it's NC State, whether it's Boston College, whether it's Texas A&M, whether it's Syracuse. They have answered the call every time. They've won close games. They've won blowouts. They've won tough fourth-quarter games.
We're not talking about.
I know we're not, but what I'm trying to tell you is we've spent so much time talking about South Carolina, and we haven't talked enough about, I think, in my mind, about Clemson.
And Clemson, as winning as they've done, they've been kind of fortunate.
Yeah.
Because Boston College, in my mind, Dillon is banged up. They lose their quarterback in the first quarter.
Who knocked him out?
And so
I say you can't blame the fact that the quarterback. First of all, the quarterback tried to put his hand down to try and brace his fall. That was exposed his midsection.
No, but we're not talking about the blame, but I'm just talking about he got hurt.
Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
suppose hey, and don't come with me about Syracuse, but suppose Clemson's quarterback goes out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, Florida was a one-dimensional team. They weren't going to beat you with the pass in all likelihood. They weren't. Everybody knows Felipe Franks is a 50% passer.
Right.
He only threw for 100 and change against the Gamecocks. His longest completion was 19 yards. Why didn't you bone up against the run? Why didn't you put more in the box than they could block? That's what they talk about. More than they can block.
Well,
did they do that at all on defense in the fourth quarter? I'd have to go back and look. I don't think they did.
That's why we're talking about the run blitz. See, when you stand and catch, blockers can just mow you over. But if you bring more in and blitz, a run blitz, then you got guys who can stop it. But when you stand there, it's kind of difficult because now they just roll over you like a road grader.
I'm just looking forward to the Orange Bowl. That's all I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing Clemson actually play a team with a pulse. Because they ain't going to play one this week. They ain't going to play one next week. And they ain't going to play one 2 weeks from today.
Now, South Carolina bowl-wise, I was looking at that today.
What's the Pittsburgh?
I'm saying they're not going to play. They're not going to play anybody until the semifinal.
Now, Pittsburgh did rush for 400 yards on Virginia Tech on Bud Foster's defense, which obviously ain't the defense that it used to be. But 400 yards. They had two guys. They had one guy go over 200 yards, another guy go over 100 yards. They will try and run the ball, and they'll be running into a stone wall. I mean, that's the thing about Clemson. They played a good running team Saturday night and just flat out shut it down. And that's what they do to you.
You can't put 8 in the box, says Craig, when Florida has 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. I'm not defending the defense, but there's nothing we all have thought of that Champ and T-Rob haven't thought out. Need more capable bodies, period. I mean, that's the thing. I
don't think they ran 3 and 4 wides. They ran a tight end. They had two backs They ran two backs in the backfield.
They do run a little bit more of a spread look.
But not in the fourth quarter. I have to go back and look at the video, but I mean, you may be right. I have to go back and look at that again, but they weren't they weren't going to throw the ball on a regular basis and beat the Gamecocks, not with a 17-point
You need to learn
lead.
how to stop the run, period, end of discussion.
I'm going to look at it here during the break and see. When we come back, we've got recruiting.
Yes.
Take more phone calls, 800-956-7266. Zach Willis, 1st and 10. Can't wait to hear what he has to say. David Shelton on high schools. Mick Mixon on the Panthers. Hour 2 coming up.
Our pets.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. Coming up, we'll have First and 10 with Zach Willis. We'll have recruiting here in just a moment for you. And let's get back to phone calls before we do that. 800-956-7266. Tiger Brian in Lancaster. Hello,
Hey.
Tiger Brian.
Man, how y'all doing tonight? I hope y'all staying dry, man. It's a wet, messy day, ain't it?
I'm glad we can stop talking about that 5-4 team. Maybe talk about that 10-0 team, Tiger Brian.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, you know what it all comes down to? Dabo and the staff, we have recruited the last 5 or 6 years and got good recruits. So we play more players than probably anybody in the NCAA. I mean, we'll play everybody but the damn cheerleaders.
There was somebody
you
on
do
Twitter
that when you got 20-point leads plus in the fourth quarter. Just clear your bench.
There was somebody on the Gamecock
right.
Twitter who was saying was begging Clemson to maybe play the cheerleaders in the third quarter because they'll be so far up on Carolina by the time they get to halftime.
I mean, look, we got 2 weeks to talk about this thing. We can go ahead and start now because Gamecocks have Chattanooga and Clemson's got Duke. So those games are foregone conclusions. But, can the Gamecocks make a game out of it?
Absolutely not.
No.
You can't go to Florida and hold a 17-point lead. You expect to hang with Clemson? Come on.
I asked the question. Nobody said expect. I said, can the Gamecocks make it a game? Now,
I think if it was at William Bryce, they could probably keep it within 20. But at Clemson, at night game 2,
how much longer? I mean, I think you've got to be patient if you're a Gamecock fan.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back and look this up. So right now, the Gamecocks are 5-4, correct?
Yes.
Last year, they won 9 games. They were 9-4.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's 14-8.
Mm-hmm.
And in Muschamp's first year, 6-7, has 20-15. So he's won 20 of his first 35. What was Dabo after his first 35 games? That's what I wanted to look up. I haven't had a chance to look. I'd like to see what Dabo was through his first 35. Look that up, and we'll continue with the calls. My point is, patience is a virtue.
13-8 through the first 21.
13-8.
13-8. And then 19-15 through the first 3 seasons.
34 games.
Yes.
So can you find me one more? 19-15.
What would you say? One more would be 2011. In 2011, they would have.
Did they win their opener in 2011?
I'm getting
that would make him same as Muschamp after 35.
They beat Troy, so yes.
So he was 20-15 after 35 games.
Mm-hmm.
Muschamp is 20-15 after 35 games. Now, what does that mean?
Basically, it's almost exactly the same blueprint.
Because Dabo would not have had Alabama on his schedule after 2015, but South Carolina has Alabama on their schedule.
Well, here's the reason why it's a little inverted, because you're also counting the interim 7. Do you want to count the interim year?
Those count.
So it was 4-3 in the interim year, then 9-5 in his first full year in 2009. They went to the Music City Bowl. 6-7 in 2010. They lost the Meineke Car Care Bowl, and then 2011 they lost in the Orange Bowl after going 10-3 during the.
So they have
season.
the exact same records after head coaches. I tell you what, let's forget the interim. Let's take a call. You look up his first 35 games as the full-time head coach.
All right.
Let's forget the interim. Let's hit I tell you what. Let me do recruiting, and then you look that up while I do recruiting, and then we'll come back to call. So
13-12 through the first 30. What do you want? The first 25 games? 35.
35.
Okay.
35. So recruiting cornerback Zay Flowers, 5'10", 170 of Fort Lauderdale, offered by USC. He announced it last week, but he thinks he's had the offer longer than that because he's been in contact with Travaris Robinson. His next visit will be an official to USC, possibly for the Akron weekend. He likes the SEC. He likes what Robinson's telling him and how they would use him as a physical corner. And they've been recruiting him since last summer, he said. He knows Chris Lamons and Sky Moore, and so he's learning about South Carolina from those. In fact, Chris Lamons, he said, is his brother's best friend, so he talks to him a lot. He has taken an official to Kansas State. He'll take one to Nebraska this weekend. Rivals on his recruiting profile list him as having been committed to Nebraska at one time, but he said he's never committed to anyone. Plans to visit NC State and Boston College in December. Not favoring anyone at this point. Not sure if he'll sign early. He said NC State, Boston College, and Kansas State have been recruiting him the hardest, but Robinson is making a strong effort with daily communication. You got those numbers?
I do. So it's actually 2 games better than Muschamp, 22 and 13. That would get you through the first 10 games of the 2011 season with 4 still to go. He finished that year, ironically, 1 and 3 with losses to NC State, South Carolina, and West Virginia in the Orange Bowl. The lone game they won was the ACC championship game that was over Virginia Tech in Charlotte.
All right, Clemson offered 2020 receiver J.J. Evans, 6'3", 185, Montvalo, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, and Tennessee, also among his offers. Per Tiger Illustrated, 2020 defensive end Brian Bresci, Damascus, Maryland, ranked by Rivals #1 defensive end nationally in his class, will visit Saturday. And 2020 quarterback DJ Ukulele, Bellflower, California, will make a return trip to Clemson for the USC game. 2020 defensive lineman Alex Huntley of Hammond told the State he went to Georgia Saturday night for the Auburn game. He's also been to USC and Texas this season, hopes to get to Oklahoma. Linebacker Quavaris Crouch of Charlotte, who went to Tennessee officially over the weekend and will take an official to Clemson this weekend, told Rivals his top 3 are Clemson, Michigan, and Tennessee. 2020 receiver Jalen Coit of Cheraw went to Duke on Saturday, said he had a really good time there. He has an offer from the Blue Devils, along with Kansas, Indiana, and Appalachian State, considering taking a visit to Clemson this weekend. Athlete Xavier Leggett of Mullins went to Tennessee on an unofficial Saturday. The Vols offered him last week. He plans to return to USC this Saturday. Said he had a real good time at Tennessee. Love the facilities. The coaches are telling him a lot of good things. They want him to be a part of their rebuild there. And they said he could play any position he wants, including some quarterback. Again, he plans to visit USC this weekend. Offensive lineman Nigel Jenkins of Southside Christian took an unofficial to Memphis over the weekend. It went well, he said, but it was cold. He's also been to USC for the Tennessee game. The Gamecocks like him, he said, but he said that they're out of spots in 2019, so it depends on who commits and who doesn't commit. He's also been to Kentucky. 2020 corner Christian Miller of Hilton Head went to Notre Dame Saturday. And Clemson baseball got a commitment from 2022 catcher Hogan Garner of James Island. There you go with recruiting. Remember to check it out on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. Back to your phone calls now as we go to where we headed next. Steve in 96. Oh, 96.
My man.
Maybe a fan of yours. Steve, welcome to Sports Talk.
Thank you, Phil. I just wanted to say that I have been patient with the Gamecocks since 1955.
That's a lot of patience.
That's exactly right. I still love my Gamecocks. They have never been able to compete with Clemson as far as recruiting until Steve Spurrier. We weak at linebackers.
Yeah.
They aren't tackling. I saw 3 of them trying to strip the ball. They stripped the ball. When I played, we were taught to take the man's feet out from under him.
Mm-hmm.
I think in today's world, they teach you to strip. Do they not?
Yeah,
Is that not today's world?
You can't go low on guys anymore because of the danger of having a flag.
Well,
but I mean, you can tackle them at their feet. You can go. Can't you?
I would hope
Can't you tackle them at their feet?
It teaches the strike zone is from right around here to.
Now you can't block below the knees, but when it comes to tackling, you can tackle below.
I don't think you hit a quarterback below the knees, something like that.
No, but I'm just speaking of these defensive backs and these linebackers. They were trying to strip the ball, and you can't pull a 200-something pound man down trying to strip the ball.
I agree with you that a lot of these guys are not wrapping up. They're bouncing off because they're trying to create a big heroic play instead of making the standard play. Back in a moment.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It is now time for my favorite time of the week. 1st and 10 with Zach Willis.
You say that to all the coaches.
I don't.
Why do you suck up to every one of them?
I say it to Zach Willis.
You said the same thing about my man, Chuck Reedy. My man, Ellis Johnson. No. Now it's my man, Zach Willis.
Zach Willis is the only person I text with during games, and we were having a fun time watching that beat down at Boston College on Saturday night.
Let's welcome in Zach Willis, 1st and 10 here on Sports Talk. Good to have you with us. Let's get right to it. Let's not waste time by welcoming each other. Let's just get right down to work. So I say with 20 minutes to play, you're up by 17. You should win the football game, and your defense should win it for you. And when you don't win, even though you don't do much on offense, you don't stop the other team 3 straight possessions. They get 230 yards on their last 3 possessions right down your throat. I put that on the defense. You say?
I never like to pick. Coming from a coaching perspective, Phil, I'd say that they lost as a team.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I know that, but come on. You got to blame somebody or something.
The whole team you blame.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I want to point something out to you, Phil. And I really think, honestly, looking at it, 23 missed tackles, which Phil and I talked about, like Will and I talked about games. 23 missed tackles in a football game, you should never win the game, okay? I don't care if you score 100 points. A Division I SEC football team, and I knew they were missing a bunch of tackles last week, and I didn't count them. Erased the game too early. I made sure I did. 16 of those misses that were legit misses were in the first half, so it wasn't due to fatigue. Okay, second half, they didn't have a chance to miss the tackle because they couldn't get close enough to the running back or the ball carrier to do it. Or just got flat run over, and I didn't count that as a missed tackle.
Now Zach,
get off the block.
I want to say this before I want to make this point so you can talk about it before we get too deep here. I'm making the argument that you had to make Florida into a passing team. You had to make Franks be the guy that beat you because you know they were going to run it. I argue they didn't put enough in the box. Some have countered that Florida's sets were 3 and 4 wide. You couldn't put that many in the box. I know. Help me out as a coach. What do you do?
You got to. You got to. I agree with that 100%. They played a bear front, what we call a double eagle in the business. They put guys in the box. Here's the problem. And I learned this from Coach Holtz. When you play a double eagle defense, you must be able to defend the power play, which is a pulling guard and a fullback coming up in there in the same gap. That's the weakness of that front. They never adjusted. They never stemmed. It's what we call the front. When you start in one front, you don't jump into another front. They never disguised anything. They sat there vanilla because they've done it for 3 quarters and it worked. Florida figured it out, found out how to run that play out of multiple formations, and that's what Franks kept running, with the tailback being his lead most of the time, and quarterback power that absolutely killed them in the run game. And then offensively, on their last 2 drives, they led with running plays. They had a great chance. Mon Denson was running hard. One of them was blocking great on that right side going into South Carolina's boundary. After they picked up their first down, they could have play action. I promise you, they would have hit their head on the goalpost for a touchdown and put that thing away. But they ran it 2 more times, got way too conservative, and at that point the defense was dead. You know, they weren't going to stop anybody. You got to play to win. You can't play not to lose on offense. Because at that point, you got to know the defense was gooses.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they just did not know how to salt away the game. They, like you said, they played more not to lose than they did to win.
But now, Muschamp said those were RPOs. He said nothing changed in the play calling, so it's on the quarterback to make that right decision in a split second if it's all RPOs, right?
Well, don't call a goddamn RPO. Put it on yourself as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who knows more, Will Muschamp or their coordinator, whoever it is for the week, on offense, whoever it shifts to, or Jake Bentley. You know, Jake Bentley had great 3 quarters, but now we're going to call on him, and he's making all the wrong decisions. And he did make a bad throw on that interception. I'm not saying that. But I'm going to tell you this, as a coach, I don't blame my players for nothing. I'll say we don't tackle well, or we didn't throw a ball well here or there. But now RPO is a coach's decision to put it in the player's hand, and I wouldn't do that. I would have said, hey, look, we're play action right here. We just ran it down their throat for 3 downs. they're going to be bowed up, play action on first down, and hit them and hurt them.
So
That's just my opinion, but
yeah.
So like we mentioned before, I was texting with you a lot on Saturday night, and we just were marveling at what Clemson was doing. How inspiring was that performance up at Boston College? And I will call into question a little bit of your consideration about Trevor being like Joe Montana. I think it's more Elway because I think he's got a stronger arm than I think Montana did at any point in his time in the league.
Much stronger arm, same demeanor. I was talking more about his demeanor.
Got it.
As a player. Joe Montana was the coolest I've ever seen. And I was not a 49ers fan as a kid.
Well, let's just go ahead and put Trevor Lawrence in the Pro Football Hall of Fame tonight, okay? Let's just go ahead and do the ceremony. He can run down the hill on Saturday, get his bronze statue waiting for him, and go ahead and induct him into canon.
I'm ready.
We're all. Did you guys take your medicine tonight to stay focused? Are we on Carolina or Clemson?
Well, I think they've gotten a lot too much black coffee.
Now go ahead on Trevor Lawrence.
I think so. So.
Now go ahead, Zach.
Go ahead. Okay. I mean, I don't know where to go. We going to you want me to talk about Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I was exactly saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was. Will and I were talking. I was talking about his composure with Will. In the context of conversations, Will said, who do you compare him to at this point in time? And I said, honestly, from a composure standpoint, I would compare him to Joe Montana, which is elite, obviously.
Right.
Because he doesn't get rattled. He still makes some freshman mistakes. He slid too early, didn't get a first down. He caught his own deflection, should have batted it down. There were mistakes there. But then from a talent standpoint, Will's correct. In saying he's in the league with a guy like Elway that can run, has great size, and an absolute howitzer for an arm. So I'm not saying he's the Messiah here, okay? I'm just saying, this kid's got a lot of talent and a great demeanor as a quarterback.
All right, so back to South Carolina. Crushing loss. I mean, a chance to go ahead and do that. That game would have put them in such a better spot,
Oh.
And now you got UTC at home. We should win that. And then you got to go to Clemson. I mean, what do they do? How do you think they'll approach this week? If I'm Muschamp, I mean, I'm resting everybody that I can against UTC. I'm playing as many young guys as I can. I mean, I know you got to win the game, but if you can't beat UTC with some of your second guys and let some of your main guys get healthy for Clemson to give you some kind of chance up there.
Yeah, I think that's the right plan. It hurt me to watch it. I'm not going to lie. You try to be objective, but it just made me sick. I was sick for the staff. Nobody goes out there and loses on purpose. And I hope all the people listening to us understand that. And I have to be critical because that's what you guys asked me to do. But God Almighty, they had that game won. They were whipping Florida, and he just stopped. And, he's got to find out why. Part of it may be depth, but a lot of it's got to go back to them believing in themselves and just getting their heads right. Clemson, I don't even know if you worry about that right now. Just worry about UTC. And like you said, let's just get healthy so we can have a chance up there, whatever that chance may be.
Zach, I kind of agree with you on the play action because I always try to get into the head of a college player and where they are and what time of the season it is. And I just thought when South Carolina went in this game against Florida, Florida was a wounded bear. We're the Gators. We're at home. Are we going to stand here and lose 2 games in a row at home and 3 in a row? And when they got to the fourth quarter, it was almost like Dan Mullen said, okay, it's going to turn into a heavyweight fight. We're going to throw haymakers to run until that defense, which has been decimated by injuries, just wears out. And I, like you, think that Florida would have been a little bit over-aggressive late in that third quarter, and the play action was what the doctor ordered.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. South Carolina had established a solid run game and done a nice job for 3 quarters, a really good job. Bentley had played probably his best 3 quarters of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was going well. And you spent the fat drive, you run, got a first down. Mon Denson pounding people. They come back. If they play fake off that, if you go back and I just looked at it, there were 9 cats up when he hit the line. If with the talent you have at receiver, which is elite, even in the SEC with those 3 kids they've got, I think something big happened.
All right, hang on. We'll let you finish up that comment quickly when we come back, and then David Shelton here on Sports Talk.
I see what you're saying when it comes to them not necessarily running as much spread personnel, but part of their most success was these little power plays where they're pulling guards and they're basically taking people out of the box with these wide receivers showing on the window dressing and just running it straight down the Gamecocks' throats.
Let's go back to Zach for his final comment there before we hit the break. And you're right. I agree with what you're saying there, Will. And we're just watching the replay of South Carolina, Florida here, Coach, and watching Florida move on down the field in the fourth quarter. So go ahead and finish with what you were saying there as you hit the break.
I think the key to remember is lack of adjustment on the South Carolina defense. That power play you guys are talking about, that was the key. If you watch, that was how they picked up their big yards.
They ran it about 10 times.
And we never changed the front. The guys never changed the front. We ran that double eagle look, that odd 5-man front, which is very effective against zone plays and ISO, but the power play will kill it. And it did. And they never got out of it. They never recognized it in the box and made an adjustment. And, you know, I thought we had us a defensive guru here. And to not do that, you know, the heck with calling an RPO or blaming some kid, that stuff fires me up. There's a lot of adjustments could have been done to make this thing a win. They should have won that football game. And when you lose one like that, you take that on yourself as a coach, okay? Because that's a scheme thing, guys. You put your kids in the best position to be successful. How many times? 10 times in a row, roughly, they ran it. How many times did they stop it? None.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier in the show, the last 3 possessions, 75 yards on 10 plays, 89 yards on 8 plays, 66 yards, 10 plays, 230 yards on 28 plays, 9 minutes and 18 seconds on the last 3 possessions by Florida. So
it just makes you wonder what they were looking at. Maybe they were scared to go to another look because of their depth issues. You can't coach scared in any level, much less the SEC. And you got a big lead, and you got your foot on their neck. You got to stomp down and crush them. And we just weren't able to get it done. It was a very painful loss for, I think, everybody concerned.
Coaches,
tough loss.
As always, we thank you. Great stuff. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week leading into the big game.
You got it, guys.
All right. Thank you. Zach Willis, 1st and 10 here on Sports Talk.
Now time to look at the high school scene with our friend David Shelton from the Charleston Post and Courier and the High School Sports Report. It is brought to you by the fine folks at South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. It fave rates at Farm Bureau Insurance, auto, home, and life insurance needs. Competitive rates, local agents, and great claim service. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com.
All right, David, good to have you with us. 1 week of the playoffs behind us now for the high school league teams. And really, I'm looking over the 5A bracket now moving forward, and not a lot of close games on Friday night. I guess that Lexington-Carolina Forest game was probably the best one of the night in overtime, 36-35. Carolina Forest advances, and that's a program under, I believe it's Coach Barnes, right? Came over from North Carolina that has improved a lot since he took over there a few years ago.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job, and they've kind of balanced out it. They've had some up and down seasons. This is their best team they've had, and you know, they'll be tested this week at Somerville, but certainly you know, they competed with West Florence and in that conference in Conway and did a pretty good job, and that's a good win. Lexington's a good football team, and you know, one of those teams was going to advance in a nail-biting fashion, so Carolina Forest got the good end of the stick.
I think one of the best games of the week coming up in 5A will be Burns going to Sumter.
Yeah, I would think that's going to be that'll be one of the better games. I think the Fort Dorchester West Florence game is an interesting game, yeah, you know, because really, you know, you kind of feel for Sumter that they weren't in the lower state because somehow or another you get a hybrid region in the high school league, which is just beyond me. I don't even know how that works out, but Sumter should be in the lower state, but they are in the upper state bracket, and yet teams in their same conference were in the lower state bracket. So tough draw for them, but they'll be at home. They'll be a very good defense. Burns will not score 50 points on Friday night, I can tell you. It's a toss-up game, but Sumter's very good.
You know, we go to 4A, and, man, that Brooklyn-Casey-Buford game, I don't know about you, I stayed up until it was over with all the lightning delays, and it was like right around 1 o'clock in the morning before they finally got it done. Buford came out after the long delay, had the ball down a point, 3 minutes to go, fumbles, and BC recovers and runs out the clock. So for their reward, the Bearcats get to go to Hartsville.
Yeah, and they'll bring a physical defense. I just don't think they're anywhere close to ready for Hartsville. I think Hartsville's peaking offensively. The move that Hartsville did with moving the running back Tyon Evans to quarterback kind of made you scratch your head. He got hurt in the preseason, but I'm gonna tell you what, right now he's healthy and he's doing an more than adequate job throwing the ball. They have a good receiver, so it's not all run, but he's still like a running back playing quarterback, and he's still very deadly. And their offense is clicking on all cylinders right now.
AC Flores had a great turnaround this year, won their region, won their playoff game. Now they'll host Wren, high-flying offense. And a lot of times, these good Columbia teams play these teams from the upstate. They don't have enough for them. What about this matchup?
Yeah, I think AC Flores has enough. I think defensively they're going to be quite challenged because Wren can score the football very well. And Wren actually played pretty good defense the other night in their win over Greenville. So, I think Flores certainly got a shot, but this is one of those games that's going to come down to a bad turnover or something crazy in the kicking game. It's just going to be a very competitive game. But Flores is going to have to find a way to score. I mean, they're going to have to get up 4 or 5 touchdowns to match what Wren can do offensively.
All right, we go to 3A and just checking some of the matchups coming up. And I don't know. I guess this any of the 3A matchups in round 2 really jump out at you. Maybe Gilbert and May River. May River being kind of new on the in this level of the playoffs, having a kind of a breakthrough year for a young program.
May River's undefeated and ranked and ended up ranked in the top 5 at the end of the season. And a lot of people just are still waiting to see how they will react when they get this deep in the playoffs. They're certainly capable of beating Gilbert. Gilbert's certainly capable of beating them, but I think this is going to be a real measuring stick. A lot of people, when you're undefeated and what are they, 10 or 11-0? I think 11-0. People still don't know, and they're not confident that you're as good as you think you are, or that everybody thinks you are.
Yeah.
Well, this is the test. You get to the 3rd round of the playoffs in any classification. If you make it to the 3rd round, you're good. I mean, you're practicing Thanksgiving weekend kind of thing. That's the measuring stick. So this is going to be a big game for them. I think May River is going to win the game, and I even will say I think May River possibly could give Dillon, if they get that far to Dillon in the lower state, I think they can give them a game. I don't know if they'll beat them, but I think they can give them a game.
How surprising was the Whale Branch Oceanside Collegiate result?
Not a shocker, only because the real physical team that Oceanside played during the season beat them, Timberland. And Whale Branch is a lot like Timberland. They're not going to do anything fancy. They're going to try to pound you and beat up on you, and that's what they did. And Oceanside, I don't think handles that well. Now, they did make a dramatic comeback and almost, had a chance to win that game, but they got down bad. I think it was at least 21-0. I think they got down. And Whale Branch is a physical football team, and they played in a tough conference. And really, Oceanside only had 1 or 2 tests during the whole season, so not really a shocker. Again, when you get to this level of playoffs, the competition that you face really does matter.
I want to see a Dixie Whitmire Upper State final.
Okay, well, you're not going to get it, but that's good to want.
Hey, I can ask about teams that are not named 96, by the way.
I was impressed by that. Speaking of Dixie, I need to mention that Erskine has hired its new football coach. I think there'll be an announcement tomorrow. They'll be playing at Dixie High School in 2020
it'll
when
be
they begin.
It'll be their only football coach, right?
It'll be their only?
Not their new?
This will be.
Have they ever had a football coach?
Yeah. They had a football team back in the early hundreds. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
During the Stone Age.
They're restarting their program 60 years later.
Back when they had leather helmets.
More or less. Hey, thank you, David. We appreciate you, man. Have a great week. Talk to you Friday. Back in a moment.
Panthers 1st and 10 at the Steeler 25. Newton, 3-step drop, throwing left flat. McCaffrey wide open, will coast in for the touchdown.
We played a very skilled and talented Pittsburgh team. Just got whooped, man. Just got whooped.
You know, that highlight reminds me of the old Tommy Bowden TV shows. Like when Clemson would get beat, you didn't see the other team score at all. You wondered how Clemson lost because all you saw were highlights of the Tigers scoring. They might have gotten beat by Florida State. What was it, 50-something to 3?
Well, I wonder how Louisville did a TV show this week with Bob Petrino when Bob Petrino was fired that morning.
We just ran a crawl across the screen.
That was hilarious. Before we get to Mick, I need to pass along this sad news from Pete Yannity up at News Channel 7, who tells us from a source that David Pearson has passed away at the age of 83, a true South Carolina icon, no question about it, on this Veterans Day. And we welcome in Mick Mixon, voice of the Panthers. So I guess maybe playing on a Thursday night and taking your whipping, having a weekend to sort of get over it might have been a good thing.
Let's try to put as much lipstick on this as we can, maybe a wig, and get everybody to think it's pretty. But no, it was every phase, every component, every nuance of every phase and component. The Panthers just got laced. And Coach Rivera said today that it was important that the team own it and look at it, learn from it, but yet not dwell on it. There was a roster move today, as you guys may know, because Corn, you're always on top of things. We part company with C.J. Anderson, 1,000-yard back from a year ago. Travaris Cadet brought in. And then Coach Rivera also said today that, and I thought this was interesting, that the running back move might open up some opportunities for Cameron Artis-Payne, who's remained on the team, but just who has gotten kind of caught in that running back logjam with McCaffrey doing most of the work.
Is there I mean, like you said, what does that do to the, I guess, pecking order, if you will? I know that they want to get their yards in running the football. It just didn't seem like they were getting any push against this very, very physical Pittsburgh D.
It was the Newton throw. Just the Panthers start and went zip, zip, zip. I mean, Norv Turner, I ran into him today. I'm not name dropping, but I just happened to run into Uncle Norv on the way in to the building today. And he was still talking about that first drive. He said, my golly, that's one of our best first possessions of the year. And I said, Coach, at that point, did you kind of start thinking, we got some things figured out? And he says, oh, my goodness, no. He said, they're very good on offense. We knew it was going to be a tough game, but you got the pump and go to Smith-Schuster and at 7-7. Then Newton makes that throw that you can't make in the pick six. And it just kind of got snowballed from there. I think the Steelers are good, but I don't think they're 31 points better than the Panthers. When you look at it, Mick, and I don't know if you want to comment on this, but when I saw the Panthers, it looked like after the pick six, the batteries just ran down. And I know people say you can't make excuses, but I can tell you I'm an NFL fan, but I detest all these Thursday night games, especially when a team has to travel and you go in there. You usually see one team that has a little bit of juice and some of their batteries just run out for whatever reason. Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, I'm not. It would sound like sour grapes or like I'm trying to make excuses for the club. I'm not, because Pittsburgh they had played a physical game at Baltimore. The Panthers hosted Tampa Bay in a physical game, but Pittsburgh looked fine. They looked like they had just come from Club Med. And then it was the Panthers that it just looked like different DNA. It just looked like two clubs that had different energy levels throughout the game. And it happens. Coach Rivera said that it's important that the Panthers not panic, get ready to go to Detroit, and happily, you're still positioned well. 6-3. It was not a conference loss, and the Falcons shockingly lost to Cleveland. So the Panthers right now still have the third best record in the NFC. So things can be okay.
So how does it work? You played on Thursday. Team gets several extra days off. They don't report again until what, tomorrow or Wednesday?
It'll be tomorrow, but they were all there today. I mean, I was down in the locker room a little bit looking for somebody to make eye contact with me so I can talk to him on Panther Talk tonight. Olsen, Shaq Thompson. I mean, most of the guys were. Luke Kuechly was around. most of the guys were in lifting and getting treatment and getting some football, their minds in a football mindset, Corn, even though they weren't required to today.
Yeah. Yeah. And you go up to Detroit, a team that is really struggling. They had high hopes going into this season with their new coach, but their offense has struggled. I don't know the numbers on Stafford. I don't think he's been as good as he was last year, last place in their division. So you can do me a favor if you take care of business.
We'd love to. I'll tell the team that Wednesday at practice.
Do you think that might be kind of like an inspirational thing, like win one for the Corn sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure I'll get the vacuous stares, and then maybe someone might say, "Who's Phil Kornbluth?"
Captain Munderland. He'll know me.
Captain Will, you're right. Yeah.
Tell him I called him in, what is this, probably called him in about 2012, 2013 to talk recruiting when he was an unknown out of Mobile, Alabama.
Born 3 months premature. He was in and out of hospitals for the first couple of years of his life. And he is now probably the strongest Panther pound for pound in the weight room. I got that from assistant strength coach Jason Bengucci. So Munderland's an amazing story. And he's playing well now.
Yeah. I mean, he came to South Carolina as a guy that had a pretty good rep coming out of high school. I think Ron Cooper was the Gamecock secondary coach then and was recruiting that area. And I'm not going to say they took a flyer on him, but he wasn't all that heralded. He turned out to be a terrific Gamecock player and has done an excellent job in his NFL career.
You should write a book, Corn, because you've seen, I mean, the things that you've seen and you've covered in the Palmetto State, I mean, it would be a bestseller.
Had to be a coloring book. Too many words.
No, I think you could do it. And, yeah, we go to Detroit. The Lions, too, have had problems defensively. They got receivers running free in their secondary. They've had a hard time getting the pass rush that they're desirous of. So this is one of those where you feel like if you're going to have the kind of season you want to have here, the Panthers, you got to go up there and take care of business.
Hey, have a great trip to beautiful Detroit. It's wonderful this time of the year. And we will talk to you next week and enjoy your show tonight across the Carolinas.
Sounds good, brother. Thanks for the visit.
Thank you, as always.
If you do write a book, I do not want to be the one to have to edit it.
Fine. Just coloring pages. That's all. I'm just going to put pictures in there and pictures of me in various poses.
All you got to do is hit spell check.
Let's hit Alex in Myrtle Beach real quick. He's been waiting for a while. We reward him with about a minute of sports talk. Hello, Alex.
Hey.
How's it going?
I'm enjoying the show tonight. Great show. But I'm also a Gamecock fan, so I'm kind of a little bit of pain. Quick, I have a question, but first I just want to state some of the things we talked about. That was, how the team was tied to defense in the fourth quarter. I went to the pregame show, and I knew, and Ty Ellis and those other guys, and another show before then, and they're saying that we were thin on defense. So maybe you're thin on defense. You're going to get tired of the fourth quarter. I'm not a football coach, but, in the end of the end of the first half, you got time to go and score again. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not even a coach. I think you're going to need more points. And I think perhaps they should know that. And I have a question. During that game, I was actually looking outside and I had on my radio, and I heard where the Florida player threw it and it bounced up, and then the receiver caught it and he fumbled it. So I didn't hear the whole thing, so I went back and I rewinded it, and I saw where it was like a fumble, right?
Quick whistle.
Well, you can make the argument that that was a bad call. You can make the argument that was a bad call, that J.C. Horn created a fumble there, and it should have been the Gamecocks' ball. You look at it on the replay, it certainly is reasonable to think that. Maybe Muschamp should have spent a timeout so they review it. He was saying he was told by the officials that they were reviewing it, and there was a whistle. Others said there wasn't a whistle. I don't know.
Just don't know how to salt away a game. Can't expect to win.
Talking Tuesday tomorrow. Who's going to Clemson?
Yours truly.
Have fun. And we'll see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.